Thank you. So good morning, everybody. For those of you who don't know, I'm Francesca Pryor and I'm from Southampton City Council. I'm really sorry, I've got some apologies. I've got COVID, so my voice is very in and out, and I might have to mute myself to cough and things, so I do apologise. So hopefully you will have seen the agenda for today, but just in case you haven't, you'll be hearing from myself, Claire Hancock, and Sharron Weetman about successful models of the Youth Hub, what's worked, what hasn't worked. You'll then have some opportunities to ask us any questions and to give any updates. We then have linking with traineeships with youth hubs from Partridge at Mencap. At 11:20 we'll have, and I think she's due to join us a little bit later. We then have some Kickstart success stories, and that will be through Henry and Elizabeth Taylor, and then we plan to close the meeting at 12 o'clock. So if anyone has any questions as we go through, please feel free. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. I've done a quick presentation just because I thought it was easier to keep me focused with my wonderful hang on, sorry, I've got too many windows open. I've got COVID brain. So our youth hub in Southampton. Can everybody see the screen? I can't see anyone, so I just need someone to yell yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Cool, thank you. Okay, so I'm one of the operational managers for the employment support team at Southampton City Council, and I oversee the Young Adults Employment Hub. We've been going since the 1st of December 2020. So some of the highlights so far, we've received 713 referrals, and that's not just through young people walking in through the door, but also it's about DWP referrals and referrals from all sorts of other organisations within the city. So far we've worked with 557, and out of those we've had 310 paid placements or paid work. So that has included some of the Kickstart placements, it's included apprenticeships, as well as just normal paid work. We've had 245 young people go through training, and so some of those have gone through training that have then developed into paid employment. And we've had 11 work placements, which doesn't sound a lot, but with this post-COVID world, nobody really wanted to let anyone into the workplace. So I kept that because I thought it was a bit of an achievement in itself. So our offer is that we offer the model of supported employment. So we will work with people on a one-to-one basis. It's very person-centred. It's about taking them through their journey. So finding out what they want to achieve when they're working with us and help them to achieve that. So we can offer in-work support, we can offer interview support, so we can go into the interview with our young people. But we just offer impartial information, advice and guidance to enable them to make the right decisions. So our hub is co-located, so we have youth workers from our local No Limits. So the idea behind it is that if a young person comes in, they have multiple issues, we can focus on the employment and training element, and then the youth workers can help them with any other issues that they might have. And we also have our DWP work coaches. So on average, I have 3 at any one time. It's recently changing. So we've got a new work coach who's just joined us, but I understand she'll be split between ourselves and the job centre. We also have an online hub. So the idea behind the online hub was when we launched, it was during COVID, we weren't able to see people face to face, but we were able to put a lot of information up onto the hub so that young people could use that as a bit of a reference point. And also we've kept it going so that young people, if they don't feel confident enough to walk into the hub or to make that phone call, they can do some research, find out exactly what it is they want, and then they're able to come in and have a chat with us. We're also really lucky because of the space that we've got. We have Prince's Trust who are based with us 2 to 3 times a week. So they run lots of their Explore programmes, and any other training that they want to do. They tend to run it in our seminar room. We have Saints Foundation who come in and use the space. We also have the Youth Affinity Group, which is a group run by No Limits, and it's a safe space really for young people to come along and just be part of a group. And we also have our NEAT workers, so our local authority workers come and are based with us 1 day a week each in our hub. So that allows us to do lots of joint working. It allows a one-stop shop for a lot of our young people, so they don't have to keep going off to different places. They can come into us, and the idea is that the workers from other organisations in the city will come and meet the young people in the hub, which is working really well. So events, so we launched on the 30th of November in 2020. We then had our physical launch, which was the hub in the square in August 21, once we were able to. We've had apprenticeship jobs fairs, and we've also welcomed some colleagues who I think were due to join us on the meeting today from Microlink. So they came and did their Kickstart job information session and had one-to-one conversations with the young people about their vacancies. We have quarterly youth persons forum, and we've also had a next step event. So the idea of the next step event was to invite year 11s into the hub, so they've left now, and the idea is that they knew where they could come if they needed additional help and support, but also the idea behind it being on results day, if they don't get what they need or they want, then they can come in for some information, advice and guidance, and we're going to be having lots of different organisations available on that day, but also in the future if they wanted to come and discuss anything. We've had people to come in and talk about games design. We've had sector focused jobs fairs, so the last one was construction one, and we have another health and social care one coming up soon. We do monthly body swap drop-ins, which is a virtual reality interview programme. And for those of you who don't know about it, I'm happy to answer any questions later on. But it's had some really good feedback. And we also had a wellbeing fair. So moving forward, we are in the processes of starting to become a central point of contact for care leavers in the city. So any care leaver that's starting their universal claim will come up to the hub, will meet their work coaches, and that will be where they come. So they'll come under the hub from then onwards for their relevant support. We'll be attending more events in the community. I mentioned about the results day. We'll have another apprenticeships fair because it worked really well. I mentioned the health and social care fair. We're also looking for continuation funding. And we're very lucky because Southampton City Council is now the home of the BIPC Entrepreneurial Hub, which is due to go live at the end of this month. And the idea behind that is we'll be able to create some mentoring relationships with our young people and the entrepreneurs that will be using the service. And that's everything from me. So a whistle-stop tour really as to kind of what we're doing in Southampton and how our hub's running. But the value of getting lots of people in and working together with the young people, getting the professionals to come in to see the young people is definitely working from our point of view in Southampton. Can I ask if Claire from Centrepoint is online yet?
Morning, yes.
Hi. Hello.
Sorry, I was a little bit late. I had a couple of technical issues. The internet's great when it works, isn't it?
Absolutely. So when you're ready, if I can hand over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Francesca. That was really interesting. That was great compared to some of the experiences we've had in the Northeast. So I've come on this morning to talk about what we've experienced in the hubs that we've worked with up in the Northeast. So I cover everything up from Northumberland down to Yorkshire. So I work for Centrepoint, who are predominantly a homeless charity, but in the Northeast we deliver sort of from an arm of prevention of homelessness, if you like. We deliver skills and employment programmes right across the Northeast to disadvantaged young people with multiple barriers, with a look at preventing that homelessness and people being at risk of. So we've worked with a number of youth hubs. I think we've worked with 4 now in the North East, and all of them have been very different experiences. I will say, Francesca, yours looks fantastic, and I am going to come back to you and pick your brains about some things that can feed back to some of the hubs in the North East. We have a number of contracts in the North East. So we have a Youth Employment Initiative contract, which is ESF funded. And we are in the 7th year of that now. That's a really good contract for us. So that's intensive support and IAG on a one-to-one basis for the furthest away and hardest to reach young people. And as part of that, it's a consortium contract, and we work with Hartlepool Borough Council, who are the lead partner on that consortium. And that is the first youth hub that we worked with. So that was Hartlepool Council that set up a youth hub in their local enterprise centre. And I've got to say that model is working really, really well. It's not about anybody, it's not about Hartlepool Council saying, this is what's going to happen, this is what we need to do, and everybody move along with that. It's very much a partnership approach. So everybody that is a stakeholder in that, so that is job centres, local community associations, everybody that's on the consortium, the local education authority, everybody involved in that. And we have regular youth hub working group meetings. So they're not just making decisions, they're not just saying this is what's going to happen, this is what we're going to do. They're seeking, you know, content from everybody, they're seeking opinions from everybody. At the moment, I don't know what it's like with everybody else's regions, we are really struggling with anything coming in from the DWP. And our contacts in the DWP are telling us that caseloads are very, very low. Right across the area, so that is having a real impact on a lot of providers like ourselves, because obviously that's predominantly where we get our referrals from. So for example, Hartlepool Youth Hub, we had a working group meeting a couple of weeks ago where we invited DWP, but we sat and we looked at what can we do to encourage referrals, what can we do to encourage young people into the hub, encourage employers into the hub, which is, Francesca, why I've been making lots of notes about what you were doing. Inviting employers in, inviting apprenticeships in, doing taster sessions, going out into the community and letting them know what's available in there, and looking at different mediums that we can advertise on and market that. You know, everybody, you know, young people, I'm terrible, I'm a real dinosaur. Young people are great with social media and you know, all the social platforms, but actually sometimes it can be something that grandma picks up in the supermarket and thinks that'd be ideal for their grandchild. So it's looking at how we can deliver that. But I feel Hartlepool is very much a partnership approach. It's very much everybody wanting the same goal and working with, and not fighting. This is a conversation I've had this week, everybody fighting for the young people. It's not about that, it's about doing what's right for that young person. You know, if we're not right, then we refer them to somebody else, and working with the hub across that. So that's a very positive experience we've had, and I would say that's worked really, really well. I'm really sorry, I'm in an office that I'm not normally in today and the phone keeps ringing, I do apologise. One of our other hubs was probably a year further down the line, starting from Hartlepool, and that's been a very, very different experience. They do have meetings, so they have youth hub meetings, but I've got to say the best way I can describe it, I think, really is quite dictatorial. So they are saying what we must do with young people in their hub sessions. So they're saying, you have to do this, you must deliver this, you must let us know about every young person that you're working with. Well, actually, what we're all saying, and again, there's a lot of partners go to that. What we are sort of saying is, well, not everybody comes through the hub, not everybody works with the hub. We get referrals from a lot of different areas. So that's quite a tense relationship, I would say, with everybody that's involved in that hub. And it does feel very much a dictatorial approach, which, speaking to other stakeholders that go into there, everybody's quite concerned about that approach, and it is going to be raised at the next meeting about how that's been dealt with. One of the hubs we haven't been able to get into all, that's again one of the ones that sits within the consortium, and that is run by DWP. And we've tried all ways to get into that. So we've contacted the DWP, we've contacted the local authority partner that works in there, and it's quite difficult to even get any response from that. So we've had very different experiences, I would say, in the North East of how the hubs are run and how open they are to partners going in I would say. Hartlepool for me is a great model, but I think, Francesca, I'm even going to take some of your things and talk to Hartlepool at the next meeting to say, look, these are other options that we could do and things that we could do in that. And then the last one that we've been working in is further north. But again, that's been very positive in terms of referrals. There's not a lot going on in that area. It's quite a small area, and there's not a lot of training providers working in that area. But so they've been very positive about referrals and the offer that we can make. But again, they are very keen to get everybody working together. So we've had a lot of referrals from other partners that go in that actually they're not the best fit for that young person. And for me, that's what it's all about. The youth hub should be about what works best for that young person. So I would say we've had a very mixed bag of what's gone on in the Northeast. And my colleagues down in London, again, have had the same very mixed receptions, and they're not as far down the line as we are. They're just been introduced to the hubs down in London. But what I would say key for me is if you can get a good working relationship and all stakeholders involved in the activities and the people and the work that goes on in there, rather than that dictatorial approach, because it works much better for the young people.
Thank you. Yeah, Claire, I totally agree. And I was speaking to a colleague from another youth hub yesterday who's very local, and the relationship that they were describing with their job centre and the difficulties that they were having were completely different. I think it's very much around the relationships and the personalities involved. So yeah, we're very lucky in Southampton. I am really grateful. So, okay, thank you very much. Sharron, can I ask you to come in?
You can, absolutely. Hi everyone, I'm Sharron Weetman from the GM Combined Authority. Similar to you, Francesca, I'm going to share slides because I will ramble for hours if I don't have a structure, so I'll just pop these up on the screen. But what I'm going to run through is some really similar themes actually to what we've heard already, but a bit of an update in around what we're doing in Greater Manchester. So we're across Greater Manchester, we've got 10 local authorities, and we've had a youth hub network established from 2020, which was largely driven at the start by DWP, kind of working across the 10 localities with partners to kind of get things up and running. And late last year, we started to look at what did that look like as a whole, where was it working, where was it not, what did it look like? And what we found was we've got a range of offers across the sub-region, but we don't have consistency. So some local authorities have got 2 or 3 hub offers, some haven't got any. There is a real range of offers within there. They've all got a DWP presence, but then there's different partners in different ones. So a really inconsistent experience for our young people and quite a low level of awareness. So young people didn't really know about the hubs, and quite a lot of our partners didn't know about them either. And really key for us, we couldn't really find any evidence of young people being involved in the design of the hub. So I think partly because of kind of speed and time scales, we'd kind of got them up and running, but we hadn't really involved the people who we wanted to access the service. And we haven't really got any outcome measures. So Francesca, your numbers are brilliant, and that's absolutely where we're trying to get to, but we're not able to say at the moment, this many young people have accessed support, this is what's happened, so we can't assess our impact. We were really interested in the Birmingham blueprint model when that was shared, I think, at one of the previous ERSA sessions, and so we started to think about how can we do something similar, how can we bring that together and design it differently. So we established a little project group, and most importantly within that, we started to work with our youth panel, which is supported by the GM Youth Network and GMCVO, to go out and have a look at our current offer, tell us what they thought about it, tell us what they wanted, and really start to drive and shape what we're going to do in future around what young people actually want us to do. So the culmination of that work today was that we held a workshop, partnership workshop on this Monday. So this is all hot off the press. So what we asked the youth hubs to do was to go out and basically mystery shop the offers, and the youth panel went out to both youth hubs and also to Job Centre Plus offices where they had a distinct offer, and we asked them to look at, you know, environment, how does it feel, is it welcoming, would you go there on your own, is it in the right place, can you get the right information? And they gave us a set of really clear recommendations, which are summarised here. We've actually got quite a lot more recommendations to work on, but I think some of the key points were, and this was really interesting for me because I think our vision for hubs had always been open access. People could just walk in and kind of get support when needed. But what we found was in the youth hubs at the moment that there's a need to be referred from the job centre. And what young people said to us was it's not very clear how you get referred. And potentially there are young people who could really benefit from youth hub support who aren't getting referred, or also young people who aren't claiming benefits and therefore they're not kind of accessing that support. So that's a really key bit of learning for us. Links to mental health services were really important for all the young people. And then they said National Careers Service to get that impartial careers advice. Many of them said we've not really had that before. It's really important for us. And housing and financial advice. And the other really key bit of learning for me was what we'd started to plan in our project group as a bunch of people of about my age was we need to get all the services in all of the hubs, and they're there all the time, and you can walk in and you can access it straight away. And what the young people said was actually that would probably be quite overwhelming, and we don't really want to go in a space where everybody's there all the time. And as long as we've got a key worker or a point of contact who is connecting us in and making sure that referrals are done properly and the right information shared, and you know we've got somewhere to go to, we just want the connection. It doesn't all have to be in that space. So we will be obviously taking that forward. Few bits of feedback around that the spaces being informal. We had quite a lot of conversation about security. So, you know, that some of the spaces have kind of bars on the windows and security guards on the doors, and, you know, that are kind of feeling around workforce development really more than anything about, you know, you can have a particular role and be there if needed for security, but actually you can still be quite warm and welcoming when someone comes through the door. So we're having a look at the best way to create the environment. And length of appointments was really important, half-hour minimum. Young people didn't want to feel kind of rushed and like they just had to, you know, get everything sorted in 5 to 10 minutes. So what we've done following the mystery shopper visits is we held the workshop on Monday. The youth panel fed back. They were brilliant. They gave us kind of, this is what worked, this is what didn't, this is what we would want to see. And then across the partnerships, so within the workshops, we had local authorities, we had local provider partners, we had DWP, obviously our young people, absolutely the heart of all the discussions. But we've started to develop a really clear vision of that's what we want to achieve. Here are the gaps between what we want and what we've got, and how can we start to plug those gaps. And in terms of first stages, we're already working with Prince's Trust and DWP on a new hub in the Prince's Trust building in Manchester, which is actually where we were in that little picture on the slide. And we're working on that as being the kind of starter of the core model that we want to be developed everywhere. We will get it implemented in Manchester and then roll it out. I think similarly to the feedback from Centrepoint, we felt it's really important that the hubs aren't owned or led by one organisation, and actually DWP were really clear on that. We don't want them to be seen as our hubs because that can be a barrier. So we want to design them around being a really strong local offer for our young people with the right partners connected in. The ability to drop in, so you don't have to be referred, you don't need to have an appointment, and we've got some thoughts around how we would resource that. And really key for us is an ongoing engagement with the youth panel now, so they will be involved in reviewing what we do, how we do it, and whether we're getting it right as we go forward. So just in terms of what we are now working on, so we are developing up what that consistent core offer will look like. So it doesn't matter which hub you go to in Greater Manchester, there will be a core approach and a core offer. We're looking at age range and access. So we've had some interesting discussions about, well, we'd like them to be for everyone, but actually if I think I'm thinking about year 11 leavers and things like that, you know, if you're at a younger age, is that the right space? If we've got 24, 25-year-olds in, we'd quite like to extend into kind of adult hubs as well. So we just need to think about that a bit more. If anyone's done any work on that, we'd be really grateful to chat to you. But I think for us, we're really keen that we do engage with our hidden economically inactive residents across GM to actually engage in the support available. Similar to Southampton, we are looking at a connection to our care leaver support. So we, in addition to the youth hubs, have an employment education and training plan just in the final stages of development for our care leavers. That includes a commitment to create a series of hubs. So why would we do separate ones? We will do them together. We are working on our shared outcome measures, and within that, looking at data sharing protocols. So quite high level shared outcomes in terms of numbers, but I think really key for us, we want to look at outcomes, not just about the kind of, you know, jobs and interviews and apprenticeships, etc., but actually that distance travelled for young people. If you weren't engaged with any support before, but you've stepped through the door, how has this helped you? And one really interesting piece of feedback from me for the young people was they really liked one of the hubs that had they were kind of doing pottery in the corner and kind of arts and crafts and confidence building. And they said, do you know what, we really like that, because it can make you quite nervous going in and doing it, but whilst it might seem a bit fluffy, that can really help you just engage with other people and feel safe in the space. So that's another key thing we're going to take away. We're looking at workforce development across anyone who's working in a hub. So we're really conscious that the quality of support and advice you get is only as good as what that key worker knows. So we've just done some provision mapping across GM of what support is available and who's doing what, and we're going to make sure there's a shared level of awareness and a shared approach to again the offer that you get. We are looking at some comms and awareness raising and doing a little bit more around employer connections, so that you know, if there are opportunities to talk to employers, look at vacancies, do job fairs, etc., that we start to establish the youth hubs as the space where you can do that. So I think we're quite sort of early on our journey, I think. So we do have a hub network, but we've got quite a big vision now for, I think, how we bring it together consistently and we build it around our young people. And as you've probably gathered, I'm really excited about where we go next. And thank you.
Thank you very much. It sounds really exciting, and yeah, it's I love being part of the hub, because I just think, you know, actually you do get to watch those journeys, and the young people that maybe stand outside the door for 15-20 minutes trying to build up the courage to walk through the door, and you go and you have a chat and you just walk them through, and then the next time they're coming in, and then, you know, we've had a couple of stories where we've had young people who have said, I've engaged with lots of support and nobody's ever been able to help me, and I start my job next week. And you just think, yeah, that's why we do this. That's exactly why we do it. So no, that's brilliant. Thank you, everybody. So we've got about half an hour. If anybody would like to ask any questions, or if you'd like to give any updates, then the floor is yours. Wow. Okay. This could be a short meeting, guys. Has anyone got?
Actually,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. So my name's Martin Sigsworth, and I'm from Lambeth Borough Council. We have a number of youth hubs dotted around the borough, and we're actually undergoing a review of our activities because they've been delivering for about a year, and we've had some kind of issues around engagement and whether what we're actually providing at the moment is meeting the needs of the young people within the borough. It'd actually be really handy for me if I could touch base with everybody that's kind of spoke today, just to pick your brains a little bit as we go through this review and understand a little bit more about what's worked for you guys and the kind of processes that you've gone through, particularly in Greater Manchester. because you seem to be a little bit ahead of us in terms of reviewing what you're going to do with youth hubs. So, but yeah, no, really helpful for me at this stage, and yeah, great work.
Absolutely. I can. Do you want? I'll need to put my email address in the chat.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be perfect, please.
Yeah. Right, there we go. Thank you, Martin. Would anybody like to maybe discuss any challenges that you're currently facing? I'm thinking people will be facing the same sort of challenges, but is there anything that, you know, we've got a wealth of experience among us, so if you've got a problem, let's share it and see if we can troubleshoot and give some solutions. Okay.
Can you hear me okay? Is it very noisy if I turn my mic on?
There's a little bit of background noise.
Sorry, it's because okay. I'm actually in my hub today and I have to be in here, so I can't avoid that. So I don't know whether it's okay for me to speak or if it's going to be difficult for people to hear. So I'm the coordinator of Brighton and Hove Youth Hub, and we've just come to the end, well, coming to the end of our first year of delivery, and we've just done the bid for our second year. Fingers crossed that will go through okay, because we've had a really successful first year, following pretty similar model, I think, to you, Francesca, similar to Southampton, co-located services, and with the DWP work coaches based here. We've had 4 DWP staff based here, plus the 2 YECs. But that our biggest challenge now is that there's significantly changed in this month with a number of those work coaches not having their contracts renewed. So now our resources going right down. We do have council in-house youth employability service and EAT service, who are based here as well as a bunch of other services. So we see young people who are not EC claimants. We're sort of here for anyone who's 16 to 25, but certainly the DWP currently is like the main referrer to kind of hub support. And we've built a kind of staff team, a multi-agency staff team here. It did feel like a team. So I'm a little bit worried about what that's going to look like in the next 12 months with the limited resource the job centre are going to be able to provide to us comparative to what we've had. And it's frustrating because, like, you know, we built that multi-agency team, and that took time, and those work coaches, you know, we held good practice sessions and networking sessions. They got to see the landscape of opportunity that there is in the city that they just didn't when they were in the job centre, and now we have to start all that again. So that's my biggest frustration. But one thing that we've done at our hub, which I think is maybe a little different to some others, is because we had we initially started by inviting in providers to run courses or projects, and then we're really struggling with attendance on those groups. We started to deliver some in-house stuff. So I set up just an art club and a lunch club, and we've had a youth forum from the beginning, which were just kind of informal engagement opportunities for young people to come along to the hub and do an activity or well, meet other young people, really. But we registered our hub as an AQA assessment centre, and I did the training for that. So now we offer AQA unit awards to young people who come to the hub, and we model those sort of in-house drop-in style sessions around the AQA awards. So when young people come, they can kind of achieve certificates for participation, which has been really positive. Yes, just a bit about my hub, really.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thank you. That's fab. Elizabeth, you've got your hand up.
Yes, I have, but I've accidentally turned the camera off on my laptop, so I'm doing a bit of tech repair in the background, so I'll just speak at the moment. I'd just like to say from ERSA's point of view, we're actually making notes of all this because these are the topics that we should be discussing at the next Youth Hubs Forum. We will look at things like these challenges about the models, the engagement. But I just wanted to, the reason I put my hand up now rather than saying this at the end is that one of the things that ERSA have discussed with the Youth Futures Foundation about us being involved in the Youth Hubs work is we want to bring more providers to the Youth Hubs. And I think that the thing that was just said about the reduction in numbers of work coaches at the job centres really resonated with me, that we should be getting to the point where Restart and Work and Health Programme and what's left of the BBO youth projects and AEB funded provision, they should have better relationships with youth hubs, and I'm sure they have in some areas, and I'm not saying they haven't in Brighton or wherever, yeah, but I think building that kind of community of good practice, which we can see that really strong links that are coming in the chat now, we can start learning about what's worked, what didn't work at first but got fixed, and that's what this meeting should be all about. So I just felt like I wanted to chip in and say it's, you know, it's good to know, it's good to know what's wrong, and then we can troubleshoot and fix it. Yeah. So, and obviously that's ERSA's role is in facilitating this. I'm not going to try and tell anybody how to do it. I think we need to listen and learn from you guys. Okay, I shall put my hand down.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and yeah, the staff changes have caused some ripple effects within our hub. So we've lost an extremely good work coach because she was given a permanent job, but she was taken from the job centre and put into the fraud team, which isn't what she wanted to do. And for us, that was a big loss because she was so much, she just brought all of the energy in, and she had some amazing relationships. So we're having to rebuild the relationships with a new work coach who is just as lovely. But you know, it just takes time, doesn't it? Okay, so if anybody else has got any questions or any updates they'd like to give, this is your last opportunity, because otherwise I'm going to hand over to Kat Partridge from Mencap. So Kat, I'm really sorry you'll be on a little bit early, but I don't think I'm ever ahead of time on an agenda when I'm chairing, so I'm going to make the most of this.
Oh, hiya. That's fine. You know, we can all make some time back at the end if that's how it works. That's fabulous.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I've just popped in a little introduction to the chat as well. So I also have a little PowerPoint that I will share, because I also can get carried away if I don't have a bit of a structure. So I'll get that up. But essentially, so yeah, Royal Mencap Society, for those who don't know, is a charity that supports people with learning disabilities and autism and learning difficulties and special educational needs. Yeah, so essentially we support individuals. Well, what my job is support with employment and pathways and things, but we support individuals in all walks of life, from housing to kind of benefits and yeah, education and every element of life. So what we deliver in our lifestyles and work department are a couple of education and employment services, one of which that I head up is the Traineeships programme. So to give a bit of a context to that, Mencap have been running traineeships since 2017, and it was all getting pretty good until the pandemic, where essentially we lost basically all of our partnerships across London, and started to kind of have to reevaluate our strategy on how we were going to deliver them. So what we started doing throughout the pandemic is really hitting up the logistics companies and warehouses across Northamptonshire and Warwickshire, which worked really, really well. And since November 21, we've come back into London, and we've been starting to deliver a hospitality traineeship. So essentially what we do kind of that differs from maybe internships or other employment programs is that we're employer led. So we take on, we've tried lots of different structures for a traineeship. We've definitely found this to be the most effective of finding an employer or an industry and then building a program around that, and then essentially recruiting out, finding trainees suitable for program, rather than starting off with your trainees or interns or apprentices and then recruiting for the job. So there's loads of reasons why we do it that way, but it's definitely the most effective. So yeah, I've just kind of run through who Mencap are, but yeah, we are a learning disability charity. We are across England, Northern Ireland and Wales. So traineeships, I've just popped in the message. We are across London, Northamptonshire, Warwickshire, Bristol and Somerset. We also have supported internships across all the way into the north of England, into the south of England as well. So we do spread across the country in that sense. And yeah, we've been supporting people into paid work for over 40 years, and we support thousands of people a year. So it's pretty good. Our vision is to support people with learning disabilities have a right to access paid work on the equal basis to everyone else. And we do a lot of advocating to employers as well. So part of what we kind of offer to employers is learning disability awareness training, support and consulting with reasonable adjustments as well, in line with kind of policies, government policies and the Equality Acts and everything. So we can offer up quite a lot of support to employers, and support them in helping people with disabilities gain paid employment. So a little bit more about what traineeships actually kind of involves. So we kind of provide that tailored support through the entire process. So our cohort sizes, we tend to keep quite small, between 8 to 10, because we do obviously acknowledge the clientele of people that we are supporting, and the amount of level of support that they would require. So yeah, essentially we match the right person to the right job, in the sense that once we've got the employer, we then know what the job descriptions will be. We break down the induction process, and then that's when we start our kind of referral process and try to find the individual to meet that job. And we start from the beginning of that initial assessment process right until the end of them getting offered a job. We'll be there to support them. So the way that works is that the first section, or I'll show you a diagram in a second which helps this, but essentially they'll go through training where we break down the employer's induction, and we are there to kind of support with the development of English, maths and ICT as well. We are funded by the ESFA and the adult education budget, so this is an education programme as well. Hence why we kind of have this specific development of English, maths and ICT, as well as work prep. So that will be supported by one of our tutors. And then there's also the allocation of Mencap caseworkers, who will also be the job coaches within the employer premises. So kind of through pathways of access to work, we can kind of fund our caseworkers to support in the employer's site for the duration of the programme, or up until they kind of are offered paid employment as well. We can provide travel training. So if individuals are coming on and they need some support around kind of central London, or support with the buses around Northamptonshire, which can be quite complex sometimes, we can provide that. And obviously, as I just said, we do provide that in-work support through job coaches. So there is a really good amount of support for the individual from start of programme right until the end. And then obviously the main aim of it is to get them into a paid contract. So we do only partner with employers who have vacancies, or who can at least offer up some sort of vacancy or potential to vacancy at the end, and we're always going to be there. So I, as a programme coordinator, kind of manage the coordinating of the programme, the logistics of the programme, whereas we've then got caseworkers and tutors on ground who physically deliver the programme. So just to give you a bit more of an overview, you could kind of think of it being split into 3 sections, and this model is across anywhere that we're delivering a traineeship. We follow the same plan. So your first kind of, out of 16 weeks of a programme, your first 7 weeks is this chunk here, where it's the training sessions. We're looking at the policies and procedures. We're looking at the development of English and maths. It's all very functional, and functional to the industry that they're working in. Then the second part, so from week 8, they then start in their placements. So they'd be going in for kind of 2 days a week at placement, and then they're with us for 2 days a week. And obviously when they're in the placement, they're with the Mencap job coaches and caseworkers that they've been working with since day one. And then for their last month of programme, what we then do is we stop all the training sessions. They've gone through everything they need to go through, and then we start trying to ramp up those days, ramp up those hours to start reflecting a kind of contract or a kind of a realistic shift working week, part-time or full-time, whatever the trainee is looking to get, to give them the best opportunity to be offered a paid job at the end. So the best way to look at it is a very much an extended work placement or work trial, I should say. And yeah, I've just put here, we're not kind of constricted to any boroughs in London. We do work pan-London, so for anyone who's on this call who is in London right now and works within boroughs, we most likely can support in some way. We're across Northamptonshire, so for those who are if there is anyone in the area here, then we work in the likes of Northampton Town, Crick, Corby, Rugby, Daventry, and then Bristol and Somerset as well. So again, just to reiterate there, this kind of model is against all. Currently, in all of those areas, it is logistics and warehousing, apart from in London, where we also run the hospitality traineeship as well. So we are looking to kind of expand, but that's currently what we have at the moment, because we found that the model works really well, especially with the logistics that we've been really ramping up since kind of 2020. We sometimes have cohorts of 6 to 8 where it's 100% into placement, into jobs. So we found it to be a really, really successful industry to be in. And the same with hospitality as well. We're in our second cohort since November, and we've had paid outcomes. Out of 7 learners in our last cohort, 3 went directly into jobs at their placements, and then 2 after that have gone into other placements as well. And we're still working, we've been supporting with another organisation specific to hospitality to also continue to support the other 2, to help them get jobs and a bit more experience in the areas that they want to work. So the eligibility for the programme is we work with people aged between 19 to 24. They obviously need to identify as having a learning disability, difficulty and autism. We're not restricted to education, health and care plans, statement of educational needs. If they have, or we would just kind of, we acknowledge that people can fall through the net at college and things and might not have got the diagnosis or medical certification that perhaps they might have required at school. So we can support people who might just, essentially identify in that sense. Not qualified above a level 3, so they can have essentially up to A levels, but we can't support people due to our funding regulations above that. I say a level of independence because it is a 16-week programme, and it is 4 days a week, and it's a pathway into employment. So there needs to be essentially that level that we can taper off support by hopefully the end of the 16 weeks, where then the individual would be kind of confident to be going into the workplace, liaising with their colleagues at that point and stuff. But they kind of have us there as a comfort, as a support to understand the role in the first instance. But the aim of it is for us to kind of taper off that support and give them the independence that they've got, and obviously an eagerness to gain paid employment, ideally within the logistics sector or the hospitality sector as well. Obviously, this is fantastic for business as well, not just for our learners, but it really does support with morale within the workplace. That's what we found from doing our kind of impact measurements. The reputation, obviously, any employer that partners with us will get the disability confident kind of banding. There are economic benefits in the sense that economic and reduced staff turnover, where it's, we've done, Mencap do a lot of kind of impact measurement studies across how this works, and a lot of our trainees or interns or apprentices or whoever go on do tend to stay in their jobs for years and years and years, because they are just so happy to have been offered and have the opportunity to work. So it's a really good kind of benefits for the employers in that sense, because there is a real lack of reduced staff turnover and also championing inclusion within the workplace, kind of links to that, boosting morale and stuff. So teams tend to be a lot happier. Obviously we can support there as much as we need to kind of provide that, you know, additional kind of comfort to help all other colleagues to find ways to communicate with people who might have autism, or other ways to support those with learning disabilities as well. So I think a lot of you have touched on this who have spoken, but our biggest barrier since kind of coming back has been consistent referral routes. We've really struggled. DWP is one of our main pathways to find suitable candidates, and since the pandemic or coming back from there, we've really seen that quite slow movement back in. So we do find trainees, but it's definitely not as easy as it was. So kind of being introduced to youth hubs, or maybe there's some of you also on the call. I know there's a lot of us today who might be working with specific caseloads or different organisations, and if this looks like this might be good for you, then like please drop me a line, because I'm always trying to look for other pathways to find individuals with learning disabilities who are looking for work. And again, with that, partnerships with employers and employer connections. Obviously, we're still starting up again in London. We really have started from scratch since November, and we don't want to kind of, in a sense, consistently use the same employers, because we end up, you know, using all the vacancies essentially, and then needing to look for new employers, keeping everything alive. And I know that there will be employers out there with huge vacancy gaps at the moment, so it's trying to kind of find ways into kind of supporting them as well. So if there is anyone on the call kind of in that element of it, then please do get in touch, or if you know anyone or areas or organisations that can support with that, then a conversation is always worthwhile having. If this sounds great and you want to get more information, my email is there. I've also just put my number, and just to give you kind of a timeline of what we're doing specifically in London currently. We've got a warehouse operative traineeship starting in West London in August, and we are aiming to start our 3rd hospitality cohort in September, and that will be across central London. So yeah, that's kind of it. If you're looking for more information specifically with kind of the Northamptonshire, Warwickshire, or Bristol and Somerset, do also come to me, and I will signpost you to the programme coordinators who kind of head up those areas, and that's absolutely fine. Again, if you want to find out any other information about our supported internship service, then please do get in touch with me as well, and I can signpost you to the right programme coordinators for that element as well. So yeah, thank you very much for the time to let me speak. And yeah, get in touch if you need anything.
That's fab, thank you. Oh, my screen's doing weird things. Has anybody got any questions at all? Okay. So I know that Tammy was going to join us, but I don't know if she's here on the call yet. Tammy, are you here? I can't see everybody, sorry. Hey, hi Tammy.
Hello, sorry, trying to make things work in the shed. And apologies, Francesca, I know you got the COVID. I just had a massive hay fever sneezing fit, which is lovely. So apologies if sort of things start to dribble from me whilst speaking. But no, thank you, and apologies as well for joining late. But Catherine, really interesting presentation actually on the traineeships front, and particularly supported internships. If you aren't already in contact with us, then please do, and certainly we can think about how we can facilitate some of the, I know hubs are a really important vehicle, but obviously that core Job Centre Plus engagement as well. So just make sure you've got the right links into the sort of particular sites that can support. And I think what you were describing as well that I picked up on around sort of, you know, really positive when these initiatives are employer driven. I know you want to kind of, you know, widen that gene pool, but you know, we find that all the time actually, the sector-based work academies, all those kind of things, you know, training providers really good, but actually we want to make sure there's not a sort of viable outcome at the end of that, and that really kind of makes a difference, doesn't it, with these kinds of initiatives. So please do get in touch. I'm sure the team can pass on sort of our contact details for that.
absolutely.
Sorry, Francesca, I'm doing my usual thing of wittering away already. Yeah. Are you happy to see you gently wittering? Yeah, I'll continue then. Brilliant, and thank you guys. Thank you so much. Again, probably less I don't know, interesting time, shall we say? But obviously lots of activity ongoing in the sort of youth offer and youth hub space from the departmental perspective, and I suppose, you know, at a macro level, you know, we know that kind of, you know, youth unemployment is still relatively high. I think we've got a sort of, you know, record lows, I suppose we should say, but actually kind of for those young people that actually we are particularly concerned about, we do know that actually there is still a real need to make sure that, you know, we've got the right infrastructure in place, and that's really what we're leaning into. We have sort of the funding commitments to kind of deliver the youth offer in the round for the course of the spending review. So we're really looking to make sure that we've got the right foundational level, really, when it comes to the youth hubs in particular, which are, as you all know, a really integral part of how we're delivering support for young people in that environment that best works for them. And certainly thinking about, you know, you've heard me say many times as we've looked at joined up local service delivery being absolutely at the core. We know that, you know, people are, you know, citizens of the kind of, you know, wider world, kind of, you know, don't just interact with one government department, and actually kind of, you know, looking for that right support to look after their whole needs and their holistic needs. And we're really pleased to see that, you know, the evolution of the youth hubs is sort of, you know, happened in a way that is commensurate with that, an environment that young people actually kind of welcome and find inviting, but also making sure that those partners where, you know, we can get most traction in terms of supporting those young people, you know, employability into employment, as we well know, kind of being a sort of, you know, really, you know, sort of primary objective for ERSA as a whole. But actually kind of we know that kind of, you know, getting a job, you know, sort of, you know, sort of gently hammering you isn't going to be sort of the right route way. And I think particularly at the moment when we think about this in the context of we want to move people not just into employment, but, you know, you heard our minister say any job, better job, career. So again, sort of making sure that foundation is right, that, you know, for our young people, getting some kind of work experience is really important at that beginning of their sort of, you know, employment journey, but also thinking about what that direction will look and feel like in practice. So really important, I think, for us to sort of reflect on. And I think, you know, you guys sort of have written to us, I know, sort of recently, but I think it probably chimes with what Catherine was describing around sort of, you know, how you build those skills up for those young people. So actually isn't just a job, that's important, but actually kind of a job with prospects that actually leads to a pathway, really, that sort of career route way, really important. And particularly when we look at this in the context, you know, we've got record vacancies, you know, you've heard this often said, you know, I was just watching some sort of Sky News report with my son the other day, actually, around the kind of the need for sort of environmentally focused engineers. You sort of think, actually, gosh, yeah, kind of, you know, we've got a real cadre of young people that we know are passionate about many of these types of things. So how do we kind of encourage them into these kind of growth sectors of the future? You know, kind of, it's not just, you know, sort of refitting and all sorts of exciting things that need to happen, but how can we support our young people into that, whilst also making sure that, you know, we're sort of, you know, addressing the sort of, you know, the labour market needs, to kind of, you know, where there are the jobs, and actually we're kind of supporting them into that, and that feels relevant for them. Sorry, just excuse me while I try and deal with the latest evacuation from said nostril. Apologies in advance. Particularly unpleasant. So I think we know that, I think in terms of statistics, I think there's something for me that kind of really came home in the kind of June labour market stats. And I think in particular, you know, we know that I think it's just about 880,000 young people out of work, sort of unemployed or inactive, and not in full-time education. I think that's about what, nearly 13% of all young people. So when we are thinking about actually kind of the opportunity that we have through the youth hubs, we know that within DWP that the youth offer is predominantly focused on those young people, sort of, you know, 16 to 24, that are in that intensive work search caseload. But if we get the right infrastructure for youth hubs, and we're increasingly seeing this, then what we would like to do, where there's facility to do so, is to encourage that sort of drop-in nature. You know, Francesca, I know that's something that you in Southampton are sort of really sort of looking to explore, that those young people who aren't already in contact with sort of, you know, DWP services per se, but actually who would welcome, you know, benefit from that direction, that support, you know, kind of, you know, in an environment that's commensurate with their needs, that, you know, feels a bit more friendly than perhaps a job centre would. But, you know, I think one of the things that came through loud and clear from Kickstart in particular was that many young people sort of not quite realising that, you know, the job centre work coach, you know, can offer that support. Actually, you know, it's not just about sort of, you know, how you kind of looking for work and sort of conditionality. It's about actually kind of, you know, encouraging, supporting, understanding that young person and their motivations and thinking about how to make those connections. That's what's already happening in job centres, but almost come alive, hasn't it, in that youth hub context, when it's kind of in a setting that, as I say, it's a bit friendlier, but kind of really thinking about how we can support you on your journey, as opposed to kind of something that might be sort of perceptions that slightly less positive, shall we say, that it kind of the sort of public perception of job centres. So where are we? I think we've got just over 150 youth hubs across Great Britain, and as you all well know, located in a range of settings, busy London boroughs, Highlands of Scotland, coast and South Wales. And I think at last count is around about 600 or over 600 partners engaging and working closely with our youth hubs, and as you all well know, offering the skills, training, employment provision, as well as that range, as I say, of dedicated local services, mental health support, debt management, housing support, really valuable, with work coaches making referrals to that provision, but doing so more often than not in a kind of, I know you over there, I work with you every day, what do you think we should do? I think what I found really powerful, going to places like Hyde and Barking and seeing some of these hub sites, is actually the work coach is building those connections with the local partners, and almost the case conferencing that happens. I've got a young person, I'm not quite sure, what do you think we should do, what do you think is the right support route way, and actually building on that collective experience, actually, that it's not something we sort of hold as high as we ought to, isn't it, Francesca, in terms of that currency, really, but actually kind of, I've got a young person, I'm not quite sure, so I know, I sort of I dealt with somebody, or supported a young person that kind of had similar needs, this is what we tried with them, that might be something for you to consider. So actually kind of exposing our experience and our knowledge network really is really important, as well as obviously for the kind of the direct support they're offering to that young person as well. So I think really valuable in that respect. We are also sort of thinking about how we evaluate the youth hubs as well, so we want to sort of understand this sort of the whole youth offer, of which the youth hubs are part of, came about, as you all well know, the kind of plan for jobs. Thinking about that, sort of how we responded to the kind of post-pandemic sort of economic downturn, and certainly we want to make sure that we do that alongside monitoring the effectiveness of the offer to sort of shape future policy development, and that's something I'll touch on a bit in a moment. I think one thing that we're undertaking at the moment that I think is really quite valuable for us, and I think we want to think about how we sort of do the internal thinking, but really kind of think about how we promulgate that to networks like these, is that we've in thinking about, as I was mentioning earlier, that foundation of youth hubs. So we've got over 150 at the moment, but we've undertaken a load of deep dives across the country to understand sort of the current landscape of support that's available to young people via that hub model, and how we are adapting our services to meet the needs of local communities, and obviously the changing claimant caseload. There aren't as many young people that are on the caseload as when we started this journey, so kind of how we get that, I hate the phrase, but kind of the best bang for buck really in terms of all of our efforts and endeavours, making sure we've got the right support in the right place. So obviously in sort of January sort of this year, sort of sharing that Impetus blueprint, and I think really important, and thank you to the team at Impetus as well, that framework to support operational colleagues, work with partners and young people to deliver a really quality hub model that's making a difference to young people. I think the deep dives that we've undertaken have demonstrated that sort of all areas have or are in the process of reviewing their hubs and the outcomes that are being delivered, and again that's the currency that matters most, and the impact and value that they're adding to that local community. And alongside that, thinking about those areas where there are high levels of youth youth unemployment, but perhaps there isn't a hub present. So again, sort of encouraging our partners in Job Centre Plus and beyond to think about how we best sort of deliver that support, and whether there are opportunities to really sort of get sort of hubs in place. I think our colleagues in London are particularly not annoyed with me, but I've always kind of been a bit bewildered. I think my team know that kind of I live in Haringey, and actually there is no youth hub in Haringey, and I know there are lots of young people who would benefit from that kind of environment. So I think really sort of the work we've done with colleagues in London has been really important in terms of actually kind of, I know we've got lots of really good outreach services, and I suppose that's part of our challenge, isn't it, when you think about actually the various models that have evolved over time, but almost is there a way that we can consolidate some of that activity? That's really the ethos that was behind that youth hub, to think about how we're supporting that kind of massive young people who would benefit from that in the right way, in the right place. So I'm sort of quite excited. I think there's one opening in Haringey very soon actually, and I know sort of the local authority in particular are really enthused and wanting to be engaged with us with that, and obviously you can understand why, can't you? Kind of we all have mutual sort of objectives in this space, you know, when we think about how we best support our young people, you know, thinking about it through the lens, the cold hard lens of economic regeneration. Actually, there is something about, you know, kind of we want all of our, as many people as possible to kind of really getting stuck in, you know, being able to fulfill their potential, with the benefit for the local areas, you know, and obviously more importantly for the individual themselves. So I'm really pleased to see that sort of making a difference there. And we've also been thinking about sort of flexible delivery as well. So in areas where hubs have been operating for a while and there have been significant reductions in that intensive work search caseload, some hubs are considering how to evolve the services that they might offer. And sometimes that's through considering whether other groups of customers might benefit from the youth hub type approach. And I think earlier, and apologies I missed it, that you know, Greater Manchester was sort of speaking, and actually that's a particular sort of take home from me actually in terms of some of the thinking that's already happening there in the sort of ESF space in particular, isn't it? That, you know, as much as our young people are benefiting from this kind of support and holistic service delivery outside of the job centre, we also know that, you know, there are other people, you know, within that sort of broader caseload would also benefit. And I think, you know, the sort of the older persons, you know, sort of, you know, kind of, you know, don't find job centres, you know, quite as, you know, sort of welcoming environments, actually thinking about how you get people sort of engaged and sort of, you know, enthused outside of that sort of job centre space. So that's really something that we're looking hard at to see whether there's an opportunity to evolve that model where there's a need to do so. And I think particularly you know, when we think about the wraparound support, so, you know, again, sort of links to what Catherine was saying, but, you know, mental health organisation, you know, featuring more and more alongside elements of financial support too. And obviously that's something that we're all, you know, alive to at the moment, aren't we? The kind of cost of living and the challenges there, that, you know, is there an opportunity to kind of, you know, use the hub environment to support some of the sort of, you know, activities around income maximisation, you know, kind of, are you know, getting all the benefits you ought to be getting? You know, I think, you know, in a previous life I used to work in the pension service as was, and so, you know, that was the whole ethos behind that in our partnership approach. It was very much around actually how can we get to the places where older people are to make sure that actually we are able to engage with them. So, you know, you are claiming the benefits you ought to, and I think, you know, increasingly important right now. So as much as we want to support that kind of journey into employment and beyond, but also thinking about actually kind of, you know, dealing with the here and now, actually surviving for too many people is kind of, you know, a huge challenge. We want to make sure that we're supporting and using our sort of infrastructure to support that. And I think what we're also seeing, that as caseloads are changing, more young people with barriers and complex needs are sort of, you know, started to come through. I know our Minister for Employment and Minister for Disabled People had a conversation recently just around sort of, you know, the interaction between the sort of disability employment agenda and sort of, you know, what's happening in the youth hubs. And we are seeing lots more young people coming through. Obviously post-pandemic, we're more than well aware that, you know, it's been a challenge, you know, for all of us, but, you know, particularly for our young people when it comes to their mental health needs, as, you know, as colleagues have been describing with you today. But thinking about actually how we are integrating some of that service delivery, thinking about, you know, our local partners, you know, where our disability employment advisors actually can work more closely with our youth hub work coaches, and importantly our youth employability coaches who have been, you know, put in place specifically with that broad remit to think about, you know, those young people with the most complex barriers, and actually just what do we need to do to support them, and almost kind of a, not quite a blank sheet of paper because we're still government, but as close as you're going to get in government really, to kind of really kind of, you know, have those smaller caseloads to be able to focus on those young people, actually addressing their needs. And loads of, you know, so many young people coming through with sort of dyspraxia and sort of, you know, learning difficulties and things like that, that we have been able to support, that again, you know, coalescing those services that we've got in place, you know, lots of the case conferencing, as I mentioned earlier, that's happening, and actually some really good outcomes. So I think, you know, there's more obviously we need to do. You know, we've never done enough, you know, as government, and I think, you know, you guys are right to keep pushing us on that respect. But I think, you know, certainly some good green shoots that we want to see promulgated more widely across the network as well moving forward. And we'd certainly be interested in exploring partnerships, you know, with ERSA and with, you know, you guys on the call that can provide those additional support in areas which have sort of the largest volumes and proportions of young people that are searching for work as well. I'll just quickly touch on, if that's all right, Francesca, just obviously increasingly important, I guess, that we are leaning into the sort of the local sort of regional offers that are available as well, and sort of the offers from other government departments. Traineeships was, sort of comes to mind in particular, but apprenticeships as well, and some of the kind of DFE broker support, but equally that support that's offered by sort of local infrastructure as well. We've got sort of UK SPF, obviously a sort of investment plans are forming there. Hopefully we'll see a bit in the employability and skills space, certainly as it relates to young people, but we still have that tail of ESF support as well, and things like that. So I think, again, thinking about how those hubs can almost be a bit of a sort of central convening point for some of that, I think is a really important lens for us to think about. And I think, particularly as reflected earlier, that actually sort of that learning and skills journey actually sort of particularly important too. And I think, increasingly so for us, obviously with the end of the Kickstart scheme. So obviously Kickstart's closed to applications from employers and gateways. Sort of final job starts to sort of happen 31st of March, and I think sort of by the end of September those jobs will come to an end. Over 160,000 jobs started by young people. Really pleased that young people that have been hardest hit by the economic impact of the pandemic were able to benefit from those opportunities. But as I say, increasingly important that we are looking and sort of actively sort of engaging with those providers and other organisations that are sort of offering services that can almost sort of subsume the gap that sort of Kickstart leaves behind. So I'll stop there, Francesca. I could bang on, but I won't. But I don't know if there's kind of, you want to sort of pause for questions, or quite how you want to play the rest of the bit.
I think that was really interesting, and thank you very much. There is some questions for you in the chat. So particularly people are very keen to find out where they would find a full list of all of the youth hubs across the country, and also about a report as well, so sort of sharing the deep dive.
So I think in terms of a full list of all youth hubs, we don't, I'll have to check with my team. I don't think there's a kind of a sort of a final list available of kind of the youth hubs as they stand. It's a bit of an evolving feast at the moment, as I say, with some of the deep dive activity happening. I think what there should be on the gov.uk site is a link to the contacts in Job Centre Plus. So if you're looking for kind of what's available in particular areas, then the partnership lead partnership manager details should be available there. As I say, I'll double check and make sure if it's if it's not there. If I sort of speaking out of turn, then I'll certainly make sure that's sort of circulated to you all. But certainly there should be an ability to contact those lead partnership managers, and they will be able to let you know kind of what's happening on their patch, and certainly kind of will be a good point of contact, not just for the hubs also, but for Job Centre Plus more generally in terms of some of the other things that we've been talking about. In terms of the deep dives, it's a bit of an internal exercise, this one, so I think let me take that away, because I think there's probably a bit for us in terms of actually kind of how we sort of translate that. And I think this forum will be a really good one actually to kind of think about some of those key points, key learning points that have come through from us for the hubs themselves. So give me an action on that, Francesca, and we'll come back to you and sort of just talk you through what we found and sort of next steps, and perhaps be a good point of conversation perhaps for us all in terms of actually how you guys can be more readily involved in that kind of next phase of this hub journey.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
I was just going to say, has anybody got any questions for Tammy? Because she's a font of knowledge. So
try to be.
Let's use her.
Snotting gently. But I think I'm just noticing in the chat. I know some people have been having problems getting in contact. So if people are, then you've got my contact details. Then do feel free, and we can sort of do a bit of facilitating if there is a problem there. And obviously we'll look to make sure that central repository of information is right. I'll see a hand up.
Yeah, Gavin. Gavin, did you have a question? Excellent.
Yeah, hello Tammy, how are you doing?
Hello Gavin, how are you? You well?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Bearing up, as you can imagine, but it's tough times for young people today, as you rightly pointed out.
Definitely.
And dealing with mental health and their progression. I've put some stuff in the chat that may be helpful. I have a study going out through ERSA at the moment, so encourage everyone here to kind of follow through with that. But when we spoke last, Tammy, I mentioned about the Lord John Shipley report, and yes, you were going to come back to us on that. So I just wondering how far down the road you were with that.
Oh, Gavin, I'm going to have to send apologies. So would you mind just contacting me again with that, because I'm just having a quick look in my inbox of pain and I can't find where I filed that. So again, apologies. I think that's just a nature of the kind of bizarre world of government at the moment, that we haven't been able to pick that up. Do come back to me and we'll make sure we pick that one up. So apologies for having.
Yeah, sure. We can maybe
Doing-
connect through
so-
ERSA and connect again there, Tammy. It's fine. Yeah,
Definitely,
cheers.
definitely.
Thank you.
As my team knows, that slight tendency to kind of overpromise my end, that kind of the endeavours are always positive, but you know, I'm afraid sort of life sort of sometimes takes us away, doesn't it? So apologies for that. But again, if people have got specific questions or queries, then you know, do come to us. We'll do our very, very best. You know, we're a small team, but you know, we certainly kind of value the kind of the engagement that you've all made with this. I think, you know, we're really excited about this as a project, you know, genuinely quite passionate about this. We've got a Minister for Employment that hopefully is still there, but is very much you know, enthused. You know, this is very much a passion project for her as well, and I think we really want to see kind of, you know, what more we can do with this. Actually, there's a power in this model. As I've mentioned to you guys previously, there's a kind of, we are really excited about the fact that we've finally got a national framework for joined up local service delivery, you know, supporting our young people. So you know, we hope and expect that to last and be enduring, and you know, the sort of, you know, engagement with you guys actually kind of can only make it more so.
Brilliant, thank you. So again, still ahead of the schedule, Elizabeth and Henry, you are gonna come up with some Kickstart success stories and things.
Okay, shall I go first? Henry's here as well. I'll tell you the reasoning behind the work we're doing, and then Henry can perhaps just tell you where we're up to. As many of you on this call will know, we've been running this Kickstart forum since September 2020. We've had huge engagement, and in the early days, what we were doing was working with the Kickstart gateways, helping them get their jobs over the line, and we've continued to have this sort of community of good practice. Often we've been raising problems, and we've been problem solving with Nick Riddle and his team at the DWP. And we are aware that, you know, we're in the last tranche of young people on Kickstart, and there's been lots of negative stuff around the role of some individual employers, or, you know, just some bad practice. And we felt that within the big group that ERSA has worked with, which has been 434 organisations, we've had over 700 individuals in total at those various Kickstart forums, that we've seen some really good things that we would like to learn from. And we decided that we were really aware that people will do research on Kickstart. We've seen the National Audit Office report. We know there'll be lots of quantitative stuff about the numbers, the vacancies, the filled, the outcomes, but we felt we were probably in a unique position to record some Kickstart stories of success. Number one, stories of success about really good things for young people. Secondly, to actually talk to some of the gateways, because we really believed in that gateway model as the whole wraparound support, the supportive, nurturing, job focused environment for getting young people into jobs. And then thirdly, to talk to some employers about how it had been for him. So Henry, do you want to talk? That's enough from me. Henry, do you want to talk about where we're up to and the work that you and Erin are doing?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Henry, obviously, part of the policy team at ERSA. But for those that don't know, I started my job at ERSA through the Kickstart scheme. So and 9 months in, maybe longer. I don't know. It's gone very quickly. I'm now a full-time employee there, so I'll always be grateful to the Kickstart scheme for the opportunity it gave me, and obviously ERSA for the opportunity they gave me as well. But yeah, with regards to the Kickstart Stories report, we've done about, Erin's done more than me, so I need to thank her because I was on leave for a bit of June, but probably done about 50 interviews with Kickstarters, gateways and employers, and found some really interesting things, and kind of putting together the preliminary findings of that at the moment, and then we'll start writing the report, if you like, with that thread of good case studies running through it. So yeah, but if anyone does, as I said, like we've already done a lot of interviews, but if anybody does have case studies or resources that they would like to send, yeah, then Elizabeth's put the email in the chat. Please send them to policy@ERSA, and we'll look to include some of that stuff in. I know I've already interviewed some people on this call already, but yeah, if there's anything else, then that'd be much appreciated. But yeah, thanks.
Okay, so that's our shout out. The more interviews we can do, the better. The more varied we can do, the better. Getting a really good geographic coverage. And I think the lessons we learn will be relevant for all youth employment work, because what we're trying to do is draw out what experiences do people need to actually get young people into good jobs, to progress in work, to acquire skills, etc. So yeah, and I can see, Tammy, that you're picking up the mantle, so noted.
This is it. I know. I'm not sure. It's kind of, you know. So the final, obviously, the final stages. I know we've got sort of, you know, a few challenges to work through with some of our gateways and other organisations. But I think certainly making sure that evaluation side, I think, is really going to be important. So kind of your sort of findings from what you described, Elizabeth and Henry, actually sounds really interesting. So I think we'll be really keen to kind of sort of, you know, explore how we can engage with you on that as well.
Great. Thank you. Right, back to you, Francesca.
Perfect, thank you.
You need to be back in bed, Francesca.
I'm starting to feel worse. I was fine this morning. Thought, oh, I've got a bit more energy. Started doing some cleaning, and I think maybe I shouldn't have done. So yes. So that's everything that we have planned on the agenda. So this is your last opportunity to raise any questions, give any feedback, before I then close the meeting and give you all half an hour back. So anyone got any final comments, questions? Okay, so I'm very happy to be able to give everyone 35 minutes back. I'm sure everyone will really appreciate that in their diary. So thank you everyone for attending today. Lovely to speak and to you all and to listen to everybody. So thank you for everyone who did presentations, and see you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks
Bye.
for sharing. Thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.